Welcome and thank you all for attending this webinar. During the next hour, we'll talk about the marketing mix modeling and explore the trends, limits, and opportunities of such a tool. I'm Nicolas Baudouin, Managing Director of Cloud Services in 55, and I'm here today with Arnaud Parent, Director of Marketing Science, Nick Young, Head of Media in 55 UK, and Dustin Stewart, Data Scientist Lead in 55 US. So before jumping in, a few words on 55. We are a consulting company specialized in marketing and data. We help brands leverage data to improve marketing, media, and customer experience through a combination of specialized consultancy and technology services. We are capable of supporting our clients across the entire value chain. We work on four main areas. The first one is strategy to redefine future-proof brands' businesses. Media consulting is the second one, to measure media performance or define media strategy. Cloud services to implement cloud technologies and AI in the brand's technical environment. And customer experience to improve the customer omni-channel experience. We are 400 people mixing consultants, media experts, data engineers, data scientists, and tracking experts. And we have a worldwide footprint through our 10 offices all over the world in APAC, Europe, and US. So let's go through today's agenda. We first define what is marketing mix modeling. Then we'll show why is it important to consider it now. What is the upcoming next generation of MMM? We'll define that. We will describe our approach at 55 of that topic. And then we will conclude with a short Q&A session. You can ask questions through Zoom, and we'll try to cover them at the end of the presentation with the time left. So, marketing mix modeling, what is it? Traditional definition describe marketing mix modeling as an analysis method to quantify the impact of marketing investments on business and brand goals. It's a decision-making tool to help marketing teams to allocate their budget and optimize the overall marketing effectiveness. It's a tool, but the objective at the end is to help the teams to take the best decisions to monitor their investments. So the business dimension here is crucial, and we will talk about it along this webinar. The marketing mix modeling answers to two types of business questions. The first one is about the past performance. Is the current investment strategy effective? And the MMM gives a vision of the contribution of each marketing levers to the business. The second type of question is about the budget setting. What is the optimal budget setting? And scenario planning modules, including in MMM, provide forecasts of the impact of different budget allocation and helps to select the most profitable ones. So to summarize, the MMM gives a strategic vision of the performance of marketing levers, and the brands need the vision quarterly or once a month to move the budget, to change the budget allocation drastically more on the strategic vision. There are two other tools that help to answer two other set of questions. The first one is about the performance and ROI of the digital campaigns. The digital campaigns have more short-term effects. The KPIs measured are clicks and impressions, and the attribution tools help to understand the contribution of these campaigns to conversions. The last tool is about validation in real life of the performance of the campaign. It's made through incremental testing that helps to understand the incremental value of campaigns by comparing the results between a test and control area. So why should we consider launching an MMM? What should you consider launching an MMM project? There are at least seven good reasons for considering marketing mix modeling. The first one is to identify and quantify the impact of the main sales driver to your business. The sales drivers can be media, promotion, stores. The key question here is what driver does impact significantly my business? The second reason is in-depth analysis. It allows to deep dive into predefined dimensions such as geographies, products, distribution networks. The key question to address here is to analyze the difference of performance in terms of geography, stores, and to understand where is the optimal performance. Quantifying the ROI is often the core focus on the principal reasons for launching an MMM. So what is the ROI of my marketing levels? But even if MMM were focused on ROI of sales drivers, yet brand equity metrics from awareness to advocacy and long-term effects are must-see KPIs included in MMMs. Scenario planning, of course, is a big need covered by MMM. It helps to simulate what-if scenarios to define the optimal budget setting. And the main question here is what is the optimal budget setting for the next period? Regarding enhanced budget optimization, it aims at challenging the current budget split to foster the marketing level with higher past performance. So the question here is, how can I challenge my current budget setting? At the end, the objective is to support marketing teams to take the right decisions to monitor marketing investments. And we are convinced in 55 that in-housing is affordable for most brands and an efficient methodology to fully integrate MMM in the internal decision process of marketing teams. So we consider MMM as a campaign or marketing management tool able to give a synthetic vision of the performance to C-levels, but also as an operational tool dedicated to marketing operational teams. So now, Dustin, could you please tell us why should we consider MMM really now?
Yeah, thank you, Nicolas. So yeah, why should you care now about marketing mix modeling? Is there a reason seemingly out of nowhere everybody's talking about in-housing marketing mix? Well, yes, there's a few key reasons, and the best way to understand those reasons is to first look at how we got here. MMM has been ever present in marketing decision-making ever since it first hit the scene in the 1960s, as advertising companies in the era first started to try and measure effectiveness of campaigns across channels like TV, print, and radio. Usage expanded through the 1980s of marketing mix modeling. At that point, data science was in its nascent stage, and firms started to pop up that had access to more talent, more resources to produce marketing mix results. At the same time, in the 2000s, digital tracking or cookies became a rapidly growing concept, and all of a sudden, marketers had individual consumers' data regarding their journeys and purchases over time. That combination meant that many marketers moved their eyes to cookies, and in the process, gave up any control they had over marketing mix modeling. So that leads us to recent years where political entities around the world have started to crack down on data privacy with new legislation like GDPR and CCPA, as well as just general consumer distrust has spiked. And this has led to a rapidly decreasing ability to gather personal data. Go to the next slide. And this is part of a bigger shift in the overall data environment. It's become more and more challenging to accurately attribute marketing efforts. Already, we've seen companies like Apple and Google try and give consumers back the decision-making power over their data. And this has been, confirmed in a study run by Chile's National Consumer Service. When a website is explicit when requesting the data from the consumer, and the design of this request for data does not discourage them from rejecting the request, 95% of the users rejected sharing additional cookies. And this is what the future looks like. 5% of your digital audience might be able to be tracked. And marketing mix is, of course, privacy-centric. The primary data used in MMM is aggregated by nature. We don't care what a specific individual does, only how effective marketing is at an aggregated level. There's also been other changes in the data environment as well. Things like COVID and the financial crisis have showed us that historical data to predict the future at the consumer level is just not possible. And marketing mix modeling is a little bit better equipped to address this volatility. There's also a multitude of new marketing touchpoints, formats, and currencies that have made the landscape much more complex, and it's made agility extremely important. For example, when TikTok first hit the scene, we saw traditional MMM providers lag a couple of years behind in providing the analysis for those channels at a very high price, despite the data being available to firms much earlier. Go to the next slide. And then on top of the data environment, the expectations generally of marketers who are now more tech and data savvy has never been higher. They want greater control over the whole of the marketing decision process, including planning and budgeting, as well as reporting and optimization. They want to be agile with more frequent budget updates so they can respond to things like market uncertainty and new marketing channels. And they don't just want to get reports, they want to be able to take quick action on more channels, including an increasing number of test and learns. And they also expect to have access to many scenarios at their fingertips. What happens if the economy dips a little bit? What happens if the economy dips a lot? They want to be able to respond to these things as they come up. And then just lastly, on a technical level, there's also three kind of key catalysts for this MMM revolution. First is the people. I talked earlier about kind of the increase in tech-savvy marketers, and that's in conjunction with a large increase in data science talent, not just at specialized firms, but organizations across the board. There's also a massive increase in technical infrastructure that has enabled MMM to become feasible in-house. Cloud data warehouses, cloud computing, new data science platforms, they've all enabled next-gen MMM to become a reality. And lastly, a major catalyst for in-house MMM has been the multitude of entry-level out-of-the-box solutions offered by companies like Meta and Google. Their libraries like Robin and Lightweight have been made getting up and running on in-house MMM a reality for whatever size business you have. And this leads us to next generation MMM. Jump into that. So what exactly does that mean? Let's go ahead and see. The best way to look at it is to kind of compare side by side. So here on the left, we can see MMM, many of you are probably used to, and most often comes in the form of a single study covering the past year, comes in at a hefty price from an MMM provider. Despite that hefty price and the lack of granularity, the results are relatively a black box. You might know some of the data they base the model on, but the methodology and the levers they pull are a complete mystery to you. The results are often delivered in a PowerPoint presentation with high-level insights, just high level enough to avoid too much scrutiny. The granularity is limited, usually with limited geographic, brand, channel coverage, and this makes it very difficult to optimize and especially activate on as a result. And then halfway through the year, let's say your CPM of a channel decreases dramatically, there's no way to systematically adjust those results. They are what they are, you get them once a year. On the other hand, next-gen MMM addresses many of these concerns. The model is built in-house with your own tech stack. All the inputs, levers, outputs are fully accessible to decision makers. The model can be run on a more frequent basis. Is there changes over the year? The model can be adjusted, simulations and optimizations adjusted accordingly. And then in terms of how it looks on the user side of things, it's a tool or a dashboard that provides a live granular view of marketing performance. It also allows decision makers to run optimization and simulation scenarios, not just data scientists. Let's take a look a little bit more about what that looks like. On the left here, we kind of have your traditional Excel sheet or PowerPoint deck, and it sort of gives you static insights. You flip through the pages, or you flip through the sheets, trying to find something useful. On the other side, we have a new age MMM dashboard. It allows you to see easily metrics side by side, marketing response curves, as well as capabilities for running various scenarios, as well as geographic granularity as well. So that's the overview of the differences, but I'll hand it to Arnaud, and he can talk through the most important details of next-gen MMM.
Oh, thank you so much, Dustin, especially because you've already made very, very clear major benefits of this new generation of solutions. But let's just keep in mind that this next-gen retains some advantages of a traditional marketing mix model that were at first designed for aggregated data. So they fit with all the regulations regarding data privacy. And beyond that, thanks to the huge advances in data science, this rejuvenated MMM offer new capabilities that meet key decision needs for advertisers. I mean, they give a more complete and unsiloed view of marketing effectiveness, and they can deliver much deeper insights at the right level for decision making in terms of granularity, but also in terms of speed. And their outputs are very pragmatic recommendations, both for strategic investments and for activation. And in the very uncertain world we currently live in, it is even more crucial, as is being able to substantiate decision, to explain the reasons why to a chief marketing officer. And last, but very, very importantly, of course, this kind of solution proved out to be very cost effective. The payback, I mean the incremental sales, the incremental profits this approach may generate is the actual North Star metric, the most relevant one to be considered when investing in such a tool. And to do so, from our experience, there are 3 pillars that are showed on this slide. Thank you so much. That are equally important. It's not just all about a sophisticated statistical or data science technique that would do it alone. No, at the very, very first step, there is data inside platform. Even if there are setbacks in data access, we still have many, many relevant data points and insights to understand the consumer behaviors and the way marketing or other drivers can impact these behaviors. We can take advantage of breadth and depth in data. We can access very, very granular data till the most relevant level across channel, across creative, audiences, consumer segments, media platforms. If you consider today a retail media campaign, it makes sense to collect data at the level of retailers by campaign, by tactic. It's when it may not be needed for a TV campaign, for example. We can also have a more complete understanding of consumer journeys with brand health tracking or even with social intelligence tools. And we can also get an accelerated access to market response or use proxies when it turns out the changes in consumer behaviors happen weeks or months after the campaign, or if the data are just too expensive to collect. For a car maker, for example, the consumer decision journey is very, very long. So for an agile management of campaigns, you need to include indicators of the very early stages in the path to purchase. For example, I don't know, the car configuration on the specific page of the brand websites. And let's be very, very clear on the fact that it's not all about accessing more data. It's about integrating the most relevant ones. More data may mean worse data. And I would recommend, if you allow me, to invest actually a significant time in thinking very carefully on what are the data that best represent the customers, the markets, to challenge and validate regularly these data sources. Data curation and data governance processes are really key now to make any MMM solution a success. It may sound as a commonplace, but in my way too long experience of this, it is too often neglected, and many project owners thought that a fantastic algorithm could fix all the issue with the data or with missing data. Unfortunately, it usually doesn't work. But still, of course, the second pillar is really advanced analytic machine learning, AI-powered techniques. This is the heart of the framework with very, very ambitious goal, that is to understand and quantify the incremental impact of market drivers, but also to forecast outcomes of future campaigns and to run what-if scenarios. the advances in data science has made available a very wide spectrum of algorithms that are proven in operational practice, from very, very simple techniques till very sophisticated ones, those that are capable of dealing with several levels of granularity in the data. They give a solution to surface actionable insight from multiple and very heterogeneous data. For example, to conjointly deal with very structured time series of sales and very, well, not that structured, let's say, input from social intelligence tools. And they can find or help to determine the best mix to address different objectives simultaneously. We are currently working for a CPG company that wants to maximize incremental sales in the short term, but also to support the brand value in the longer term and control the carbon footprint of campaigns. There are now techniques that can handle that, and this is not rocket science anymore. Most of these techniques to Topital can be made flexible enough to adapt to frequent changes in the market landscape, including changes, of course, in data and media. So now it's all about selecting in a very rich stack of machine learning algorithm, one or several approaches which can be combined to address the specific issues faced by advertisers. Because you don't model anymore the same way for foodstuffs the consumer purchase every week and luxury watches that you may not buy as frequently. And you don't model the same way national linear TV campaigns and CRM or celebrity endorsement. Last point regarding these techniques, they are instrumental all along this next-gen MMM process for inputs, also in automation for data ingestion or data quality control, and so contributing to accelerate the process. And for output, for supporting decision-making and activation to help experts interpret the results and make them actionable. And this is a very smooth transition to the third pillar. As for us, the next-gen MMM gives its full potential if it is combined with internal expertise, a deep knowledge of markets, of consumer, of media, or marketing drivers, generally speaking. This expertise may be within the company's team or with very specialized partners, agency or media owners, for example. How can you really simulate the impact of radical changes of your strategy? I don't know, if I cut investment today, how will that impact my sales over the next quarter or longer term? How can you imagine, foresee the impact of this scenario without having a very deep knowledge of the way consumers behave or of the role of different media activities? It's like using ChatGPT with a very, very poor prompt. The result will be at best commonplaces, at worst completely useless. That's why for us, next-gen MMM is by nature a multidisciplinary project that calls on all the stakeholders and their contributions from the very beginning of the project, which combined will give the value to the final output and outcomes. And the various fields of expertise that are involved encompass business, marketing, communication, research, and insights, with more technical profile that turn model outputs into business outcomes. And this is clearly having this solution more integrated in the decision process that gives its value versus traditional MMM. And because traditional MMM used to be a very punctual research finding, just involving a few people and a final presentation to the CMO. We need to favor a larger usage and adoption. And talking about adoption, on the next slide, we see that this adoption has been slowed by having siloed measurement approaches. All of them were supposed to inform strategy and tactics, and the key example is MMM versus attribution. We all know that there is no such thing as a silver bullet that would propose a 100% complete solution. Our experience shows that there are huge gains that can be achieved by making work in synergy, different measurement approach. What we still call attribution, even if it's not the attribution as we've known. In other words, it's using very agile digital signal for day-to-day decision, for flexible adaptation of campaigns. These signals, even in a cookieless world, can point out risk and opportunities in the very short term and support continuous optimization of campaign. So it will give more dynamics to the system. And in that sense, it can fuel a more holistic and looking forward MMM. And on the same page, test and experimentations, I mean geotest and in-market experiments or test markets are really an underused tool to give ground truth validation for mixed models, to boost calibration for next model, showing ground truth is really required. If you want to present and to justify a switch of a significant part of your media budget to a new channel, which is really a very tricky one. You need to use ground truth validation, and it will have minimize the risk with the implementation. And this real-life experiment or a slow rolling out of a new solution will clearly help to fine-tune and convince the company board. For all these reasons, integration of different approaches in our mind is a key booster. And I may have pronounced the word integration too many times, but for all the advertisers we have been working with in the past few years, it was the key success factors. And very, very practically, it is also an integration of the technical framework within the advertiser. And Dustin, I'm sure you'll talk about it much better than I can. If you want to, of course.
Yeah, thanks, Arnaud. This is here the data to activation pyramid that we put together here. Obviously, real life doesn't work exactly like a pyramid. For example, in production, oftentimes the analytics and insights part of this pyramid are accomplished in one platform, but this generally covers the process regardless of the platform they're done in. At the bottom is kind of data collection. This is where your data warehouse or your data lake might be. The second is your analytics or data science layer, where your data scientists or analysts can model and analyze data from the data layer. After the data scientists model or wrangle the data, that's when insights can be provided to teams. Finally, based on those insights, you need to be able to activate. And so you can see sort of with these tools here, these are obviously just examples. There's a ton of others. You might see some that you use, and the point is to make the most of your tech stack and not to get more platforms, but to use what you have. So I will go ahead and pass it up to Nick.
Thanks, Dustin. So yeah, I think we've spoken a lot about kind of what next-gen MMM is and kind of some of the core benefits. I think we'll spend the next few minutes kind of going through what our approach at 55 is in terms of implementing these types of solutions with our clients. So one of the first points is something Arnaud touched upon really well in terms of having or understanding what the core data sets that you need are to have that full view of your customer journey. And not only establishing or identifying those data sets, but also making sure that those data sets are robust and at the required level of granularity for your model itself. And what that might be will vary hugely depending on the type of brand or the requirements that you have. So for example, if you're a global retail brand, you might want to have really granular media spend data split out by geographical regions, Whereas if you're a CPG brand with less access to first-party sales data, that might be more of a priority for you in finding or identifying a data source in which you can get either those e-commerce or retail store data sets to show how many sales you've actually generated, and will be of a higher priority for you there. And once you've established those data sets themselves, that in turn enables you to set up a fully customized setup that is specifically tailored towards your business requirements, and making sure that you're really agile in terms of the type and the number of different applications that you can enable with MMM. Setting up a fully transparent model is something I think we've touched upon already, but yeah, just to reiterate how hugely important that is. And where possible, setting that up within your own environment will result in far greater kind of trust and visibility into the solution, and enable you to make further enhancements and iterations much more easily when needed. And at 55, we try as much as possible to integrate your internal teams into our deployment and rollout process for next-gen MMM. So we'll work directly with your various technical and marketing teams to go through the model itself, make sure you fully understand what it is that has been set up, and really make sure that you have the necessary expertise to manage and maintain the solution yourselves moving forwards. And finally, taking a step-by-step approach throughout the whole process. So rather than trying to solve everything all in one go, we really try to focus on a more iterative approach in terms of implementing something that answers your core business needs, and then looking to scale it out afterwards once we've proved that it works and can add value to your business. And when it comes to business needs, I think Nicola spoke about it previously, but just to take this even further, identifying and establishing what your core MMM use cases are is a critical part of the project itself before you even start building anything to begin with. And at 55, we have a fairly strong view in terms of exactly what the different types of applications there are with MMM, and that goes directly into defining the type of model that you'll end up setting up. And it's important to note that across all of these different use cases, what you pick now doesn't have to be the endpoint. You can always adapt and enhance your initial setup with further use cases, but it's really important to hone on exactly what's most important for you at the very beginning. So we start with performance monitoring, and that really is the core component of most marketing measurement solutions, and MMM is really no different here. So giving you a really comprehensive full view of ROI across all your channels, whether that be online and offline, is generally where most brands will start. In-depth analysis takes that view one step further by taking those ROI channel results and then splitting that out into its various breakdowns. So for example, it could be something like paid search or social or display, and breaking that down into something like region or campaign, placement type, going down even further into something like audience and creative, if that's necessary, all of which will then enable kind of more granular tactical optimization decisions. So not just overall budget setting, but also more day-to-day optimization as well. Forecasting and scenario planning is another core element within MMM, where the model will help you generate with various response curves, so you can optimize your budget settings for each channel. So you can start to see exactly where you hit diminishing returns for each of your marketing tool sets, and really give you that forecasted view of expected sales and revenue at each point of spend across that curve. And that can then be extended further into scenario planning capabilities, where you can then create customized budget scenarios that are adapted to your real-life marketing plans. So for example, if you know you can only spend X amount in search or Y amount in TV, that can be incorporated into the model so that it works around those specific constraints that you have to give you a fully actionable recommendation. Experiments looks at the validation of any tests that you might run, and also validation of the model itself, which is obviously hugely important. And not only in that initial phase, but also as you start to use MMM and integrate it further within all of your business processes. So whether it's helping you analyze various incrementality tests that you run, or providing results for your ongoing test and learn cycle, that part or the experiment part will remain a really critical feature of your solution. And finally, real-time monitoring takes advantage of the various inputs that you'll have and be including within your model. So not only looking at something like channel ROI, but also other core business KPIs such as brand index, or maybe even data governance adherence as well. And alongside that, you can also have a view of broader factors such as competitor activity or even COVID rates. So once we've established the core applications of your MMM setup, the next bit is to put this into action. And we do this by combining various different capabilities from subject matter experts to prepackaged tech enablers, and finally, our best practice guidelines around setup and operations. So if we take people first, we have at the core heart of it, a blend of data scientists and engineers to really facilitate the actual technical build of the model itself. And alongside that, we have media and consulting experts, to not only help define and scope out the solution itself, but really work with you hand in hand to support with the onboarding, activation, and then integration of the solution within your teams. And under tech enablers, as you can see, we have prepackaged modules for all of the MMM use cases that we outlined previously. So these are essentially ready to roll out templates that will facilitate each of those 5 applications. And on top of that, they can all be further customized or tailored towards your specific needs as and when needed as well. And alongside those prepackaged modules, we also have various data quality solutions as well in place. And that covers both data quality and data governance itself, all of which helps to ensure that across all of your data inputs, they are robust, they work properly, the data is being processed in the right way, and that any insights you see in your MMM reports are not only accurate, but actually meaningful for your business as well. And then lastly, when it comes to operations, we have clearly defined guidelines across each stream, from ML to DevOps, and then even going down further to ensuring that your cloud setup is constructed in an efficient and scalable manner. And so we'll end this section by focusing on some final considerations for any MMM project. And really, it goes back to what we talked about in terms of use cases. That's really a key part of any project here. If it's not clear what you're going to do with the model, it's very unlikely that it will be properly used by your teams. Next is having a robust data governance setup, which, to be honest, isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but across any data project, it's an absolutely critical component. And with something like MMM, it's even more important considering the number and volume of different data sources that you have. Starting with an MVP and not looking to be overly ambitious and impractical is another point. So really focusing on those core requirements that you have and then iterating it further once you've really shown business value and proven that it works is a much more scalable approach. Establishing the validation process by understanding what a successful solution or project looks like is also key. So whether that's saying upfront that we're trying to build an MMM solution to increase our overall marketing ROI, or we're really doubling down on brand index, or we want to say over a defined period of time, we want to use the solution to help us create additional cost efficiencies. So really setting that out from the start means that everyone knows exactly what the end goal is, and we all can start working towards that as needed. And finally, we've talked a lot throughout this presentation around the technical components and considerations and benefits of next-gen MMM, but frankly, that's actually the far easier part. Establishing how you actually integrate this solution into your business and fundamentally changing the way that people do things is actually a far more challenging part. And in our experience, is actually where the vast majority of tech projects tend to fail. So it's really important to bear this in mind right from the beginning, alongside all the technical considerations that we've discussed. So that includes getting buy-in from senior leadership, or setting up a full-scale onboarding and ongoing support program for end users, and everything else in between. So really putting that in place right from the beginning and defining what that should look like will go a long way to ensuring success in your next-gen MMM project. Cool. And so now I'll hand over to Nicola to take us through some of the case studies of how we've implemented MMM.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. We'll illustrate with two case studies. The first one illustrates the switch of the markets toward the next generation of MMM. This European retailer experienced several MMMs in the past, but faced limitations. What were the limitations? The first one is that the past MMM were one-shot studies. They were not adapted to the pace of decision of these clients. The second one is that they were black box. It wasn't really a problem during the build phase, but during the run phase, the marketing teams found it difficult to understand some results and couldn't explain why, because they just didn't have access to the models. So they were not able to take trustable decision on it, which was the main objective for having launched MMM. So they come up to the idea that in-housing was a better approach to integrate the results in the process of monitoring campaigns. So what we have done in 55 to help them, we enrich the existing internal GCP data platforms with external data on competition, on socio-demographic KPIs, for example. We build the data sets and plug the models. We build a data visualization tool. We didn't build a tool at all. We use Power BI, which was the internal visualization tool. So the marketing teams were already used to visualize KPIs through Power BI, which fostered adoptions. And we are now in the process of transferring the models to the data teams to fully internalize this MMM. And adoption is a great part of our project. Let's switch to the second example, which is quite similar if you compare the past experience of MMM, but there are two differences. The first one is that this client didn't have any data platforms gathering media and sales data at the beginning of the project. So we helped them to build this data platform from scratch. And the second difference is that once we finished the MMM, we had them to in-house the incrementally testing process, which, as we said earlier, is a complementary tool to the MMM in the decision process. So before launching a campaign, the incrementality testing protocol allows these clients to estimate the result of the campaigns by comparing it between a test and a control area. And it allows also to validate in real life the hypotheses coming from the MMM. So they are really complementary tools, and they help to have the right marketing decision at the end. So that's here for our presentation. So thank you very much for your attention. Let's go to the questions. So I saw that there was some that were posted during our presentation. So feel free to send us questions if you want us to cover it. So I have this one. How is MMM set up? How long does it take to implement it? Yeah, that's a good question. The MMM is set up through, let's say, 4 phases. The first one, very important one, is the framing phase. It helps us to understand the business key questions to tackle. And it helps us also to understand the data available and the technical architecture. So it's very important to be sure at the real beginning to match the key business needs. The second phase is the build or enrichment of the data platform. The third phase is the development of models, and then at the end we build the data visualization. So the whole process can last from 3 to 6 months, depending on the data availability. And the final objective, as you understood, is the adoption of the tool by the marketing teams. So that's why we develop customized modules, and we help the teams to interpret the results and to use them in the monitoring process. So we work through an iterative approach, a step-by-step approach. It allows to ensure the good interpretation of the results for basic questions at the beginning before addressing more complex ones. With this approach, since the build phase, we address also change management as we have internal teams to adopt these tools throughout the project. So that's the way we work. Do we have another question?
Oh, yeah, I think I see another question around why should I choose an MMM model over an attribution model? Yeah, which is a really interesting point. I think, yeah, there's been a lot of discussion around what does attribution do versus MMM, which should I pick? Should I have both, for example? And I would say perhaps 5 or so years ago, if not a little bit more, attribution was very much kind of the preferred measurement solution for most brands globally. And that's changed, as you might be aware, over the recent years, with things like GDPR and CCPA and kind of the increased regulations around user privacy consent, as Dustin mentioned earlier, have really started to impact the amount of cookie data that we are able to capture. And that's what the majority of attribution models are entirely dependent on, which really means the amount of data that you have to attribute across your marketing channels is severely restricted and is only going to decrease over time. So that's really why we see MMM as a much more future-proof, privacy resilient solution when it comes to marketing measurement. And we actually no longer run or build MMM solutions for clients anymore. We really focus primarily on MMM today. And again, as Dustin mentioned, that's pretty much because it relies entirely on aggregated data sets. So you don't need to use cookie data at all. So even if there are additional restrictions by Chrome in terms of removing third-party cookies next year, that has absolutely no impact on MMM. And as we've seen through some of the next-gen capabilities, it really gives you very similar, if not exactly the same kind of capabilities or outputs compared to attribution.
Thank you, Nick.
I guess I can take the next one, which is, do I need a lot of data scientists to successfully implement MMM? I guess that's someone that have had the issue in the past. If I understood correct the question, I guess that this is a need for data scientists within the advertisers team, and of course this is one of the key questions when it comes to in-housing, and the answer, of course, varies depending on the scale of your business, the specific goals of your MMM project. But whatever, I can say that it's not at all a strict requirement, especially in the first steps of the project Nicolas has just explained. But whatever the size of the business, keep in mind that the main gains are with controlling the data inputs and the usage of outputs, and consequently involving the appropriate domain knowledge and marketing expertise. And after that, if you don't have in-house data scientists, or if you lack the resources to build a dedicated team, you can consider outsourcing totally or partly the machine learning components of the model, at least as a first step. It can be outsourced to external agencies or to consultants specializing in marketing analytics. 55 does provide such services, but it's actually needed for some cases, but it's not needed for all. And this consulting facilities, this expert can provide the advertiser with a necessary technical expertise and guidance throughout the process. What we do recommend usually is to be supported by experts in the first stages of the implementation journey to avoid or let's say to invent the wheel, or to have a very, very long first phase that can be very disappointing, and to benefit from past experience. Afterwards, it's a very step-by-step, a stepwise transition. We do it for you, we do it with you, and at the end, eventually, if it's relevant, we transfer to do it yourself. And to end with this question, I hope my answer is clear, but we see a lot of companies, even very large companies with a huge marketing investment, that keep a connection with external experts, external data scientists, for assistance in running the solution, for guidance in further evolution, for new use cases, for new modeling approaches, for benchmarking versus the market. And I think it's very important for this domain to keep aware of what is currently happening, because things are changing very, very fast.
Thank you, Arnaud. I can see another question. Is there a minimum amount of data needed for the next gen MMM model to be effective? And it quotes like 1 year of data. Yeah, Nick, you wanted to give elements of answer on this question?
Oh, sure. Yeah. There is no specific exact kind of minimum requirement in terms of period of data. Generally, 2 years is a good baseline to start with, and obviously, and naturally, kind of the more data you have, the more likely you are to have a significant viable MMM solution. But also, we're conscious that the period of time would be quite important in terms of what were the environments or the other macroeconomic factors around that time. But we're very conscious that, especially over the past couple of years, COVID has had a big impact on overall performance and isn't necessarily reflective of today, the situation today. So it's not only just in terms of the volume of data that you need to input into your model, but also kind of the underlying conditions and the type of data that you add that is equally as important when it comes to considering this particular factor as well.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. I can see another question. What if I do not have any data platform? Can I still implement MMM? Justin, maybe you can.
Yeah, I can take that one. Maybe Nick can take the MMM versus attribution one as well. But in terms of data platform, do you need one to implement MMM? A very short answer would be yes, but the more long answer is, I mean, also yes, to be honest. But like, I mean, you can work with whatever you have. Generally, you don't need something overly complex. You don't need to implement a very expensive data warehouse. There's more simple solutions. You probably already have a solution, to be honest, that loops in with you know, the dashboard or the data science work that would be done to create MMM. So yes, you do need one, but it doesn't need to be overly complicated.
Yeah, and in the examples we gave, there was one client that didn't have any data platform at the beginning. We did it. As we say, we have a step-by-step approach. So you don't need a 2 years project to build a huge data platform. You need only to ingest the data you need for basic questions at the beginnings and to address more complex ones months after months. So it's really the more needs you have, the more need of data you will have. And this iterative approach helps you to monitor the cost, technical cost as well. And yeah,
do you want me to take the next one? This is the question is how do you ensure validity, which in my mind is a very good question, really, because the result, the output of the model needs to be adopted by marketers, adopted by CMO, and even the board. So what we've told earlier regarding using different methods, different techniques, different measurement techniques, for example, combining MMM in geo experiments or other kinds of experiments is key for that. It's a very, very, very good way to have the ground truth regarding the output of the model. But of course, there are many or other techniques that can be developed and deployed, and that's why in many projects, what we do is to build a specific validation process in parallel of the model usage. It can be and it should be maybe customized to any client needs. And here, when we are talking about validation, we are talking about validating the data, validating the model itself with a lot of statistical testing, of course, but also validating the decision support capabilities. What do the user need to know before model outputs are translated into actions? And for all of that, we are looking for triangulation, for having all the sources just to validate or to challenge the results of the model. And one of our clients in the CPG business built a kind of an experts panel within the company, just in order to have a confrontation of the results with these experts. So you have experts from marketing and sales, for market research, for media operations, and even if my memory serves me correct, with the media agency, just in order to challenge the results of the model, to have this kind of a conversation between the modelers and those who will actually use the results. I hope it's clear.
Yeah. Thank you, Arnaud. We are running out of time. Maybe one last question. Is MMM the best known available tool to understand marketing effectiveness, or are there more complex tools out there? Maybe part of the answer is what you say, Arnaud, that there are complementary tools, and at the end, that's how you use this tool that helps you to have more accurate view on your marketing performance. Yeah, the tools are one thing. The other thing is to use it and to integrate it in your decision process. So I think that's it for the question. Yeah. So thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for attending this webinar. As a follow-up, we will send you by email our white paper regarding our approach to in-house marketing mix modeling. Feel free also to follow us on social or on our blog named T-House. Thank you very much, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.